Household easy, we close fast and anytime that works for you. Your house don't need it, we'll throw cash, it hits so fast, don't know what to do. Wanted her care to keep it.
This last refinance part, I don't want to disappoint anybody, but it's probably only going to take me about 5 minutes. It's actually really, really simple. A lot of this work was done before we even started with the pre-qualification. If you can't get pre-qualified for a loan, don't go buy a house and rehab it expecting to get a refi. You can't. You're not approved for it. So begin with the end in mind, guys. Get approved with the banker first. Very important. You want to get approved with the banker first. If you don't get approved with the banker first, you are climbing an uphill battle here. What if you're not bankable? Are you going to give up? Or are you going to get going? You know what I do when I walk into a bank and they tell me no? And it happens today still. With all my credibility, all my reputation, all my experience, they still tell me no sometimes. Why? Well, it's not necessarily me that they're saying no to. It's their appetite for lending. Some banks may say, you know what, we are really, really, really heavy right now on lending to landlords. We're looking to do more commercial or more primary residence. Fine, no problem. I'm gonna come back and talk to you guys in 6 or 8 months. Other banks say, hey, we're really, really heavy in commercial and primary residence. We would love to do some loans to some investors like you, that landlord. So it may be the bank's appetite, but the question is actually, what if you're not bankable? Here's the thing, guys. Turn your banker into your coach. And the coolest part is, I'm all about little to no money. You can do this for free. Go into the bank, say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm following David Dodge's BRRRR method, right? Explain to them what it is. Tell them you want to get loans based on appraisals and that you need to know what that entrepreneurial credit looks like. You know, what is it going to take to do that, right? They may say, hey, unfortunately, we aren't going to be able to qualify you today because you don't have great credit. Maybe you don't have enough income. Maybe your debt to income ratio is off. It's okay. All of these things happen from time to time. But what I'm saying is, don't go into the bank to get approved or pre-approved for a loan. They tell you no, and then you stop. That's what makes you a failure. Them telling you no is not a failure. That's just not today. If they tell you no and then you say, oh, this isn't for me, I'll never get a loan, well, then you're never going to quit your job. Sorry to be blunt, but that's just the reality. You're going to be stuck at that job forever. Be consistent. Turn that banker's no into a coaching session. Okay, Mr. Banker, you said that I'm getting there, I'm close, but you're not going to lend me today. No problem. What do I need to do for you to lend to me? Well, Mr. Dave, your credit's only at 640 and we have a minimum of 720. Okay, great. Now I know where I need to be. So I'm going to leave this bank knowing that I need to do everything in my power to increase my credit score to get approved for a loan. And then before I leave, I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to be back here in 2 or 3 or 4 months. You know, do you mind if I actually just put it on the schedule now? Pull up your calendar, VP of the bank. What you got, 6 weeks out or 8 weeks out or 10 weeks out, at 3 p.m. Cool, I'm going to be here. Put it on your calendar, I'm going to put it on mine. Go back, guys. Consistency is the name of the game. But what you can do is you can go to those lenders and you can turn them in to coaches. I love it. All right, what do the banks look for, guys? They're going to look for income. So don't quit your day job before you have 2 years. Before you have 2 years of income on your LLC, or you have a spouse that has income, or a partner that you can use that has income. Banks want to see income so they know that you can make the payment. They're not going to rely just on you renting it. They want to know you can pay them even if it's vacant. Organization matters, looks matter. So, obviously they're not going to lend to you if you have terrible credit or a crazy amount of debt and low income. Those things matter. But you know what matters just as much is the organization, the appearance. If I walk into a bank and I say, hey, I'm looking to get here's the thing, I'm never asking for a purchase loan. I said that earlier, but I want to repeat that for a second. I'm always asking for a refi. You should be too. But when I walk into a bank and I say, hey, I'd love to get a loan, a refinance loan on an existing loan I already have on an existing property that I've already fixed up and I've already rented, they're going to say, okay, great. Here's what we're going to need from you, Dave. We're going to need your last 2 to 3 years taxes to prove that you have income. We're going to need to see your credit, and we're going to need to, run a couple things in terms of our, or in terms of your debt to income. Most of that's just going to be on your taxes, right? But if you say, oh, okay, and you bring them a shoebox full of receipts, they're going to say, no way, I'm not going to work with you. This is a pain in the butt. But if you bring them a spreadsheet that has all of your finances, all of your assets, maybe you give them a personal financial statement. When I walk into a bank, I bring my taxes with me. I bring in my balance sheet. I bring in an income statement. I bring in a P&L. I bring in things they may not even ask for. Here's my passport. Here's my birth certificate. I give them more stuff than they need because they then look at me like, damn, this guy knows what he's doing. He's a professional. He's organized. It may not seem like that's a big deal, but again, put yourself in the shoes of that other person. If you're sitting behind the desk and Mr. Dave walks in and says, hey, Mr. Dave wants to get a loan, and Mr. Dave's got a shoebox full of receipts, you're going to be like, I am not wasting time working with this imbecile. Instead, what you're going to want is you're going to want that guy coming in with a stack of paper already printed. Here's everything you're going to need. So whenever you are working with banks, start taking notice. Start making a checklist of what they're asking for. Be prepared. Very, very important, guys. The appearance of being organized, this may come as a shock to a lot of people. The appearance of being organized is as important as what's actually on the documents themselves. You could have the best credit and the best income and the lowest debt to income ratio on the planet, but if you don't know how to file your taxes and or deliver your taxes to the lender, they're not going to lend you money, and vice versa. So what's on the documents matters, and the way you present them matters. And then last but not least, experience. So I know there's going to be a question about seasoning. Seasoning is a real thing, and your experience, as well as, I should also add a bullet on this one, relationship. Those two things kind of go hand in hand, even though they're two different things completely. But your experience with a bank or just you doing this particular strategy is going to help you because A, it's going to make you more lendable, and B, it's going to shorten your seasoning. What is seasoning? Seasoning basically means some banks are going to want to limit their risk, and they're going to say, hey, we want to see that you've owned this property for 4 to 6 months before we let you refi. Or in some cases, they're going to say, we want to see that you've rented this property for 4 to 6 months before we'll refi. Well, if you have to buy it and then rehab it and then rent it and then wait 4 to 6 months, you can now see why this sometimes may take 7 or 8 months. But here's the cool part, guys. Don't let that stop you. Don't let that deter you. Once you do 5 or 10 of these, your bank's going to say, man, we really appreciate your business, Dave. We really appreciate it. In fact, we're going to take your 4-month seasoning down to 2 months. And in some cases, actually in most cases, now I have a lot of experience and I do have great relationships, but with most of my banks, my seasoning is 0. They will not let me refi unless it's rented and a lease is signed. But that goes without saying. I wouldn't want to do that if I was a bank either. But after you build experience and relationships with these lenders, that could be a bank, could be a credit union, local, small, they're going to want to work with you more and more, and they're going to give you better deals, lower rates, and less seasoning. All right, know your numbers before you buy. Guys, remember whenever I said that I had done about 700 successful real estate deals and I lost on 2? Let's talk about those 2 just for a brief second here. I overestimated my ARV, my after repair value on those 2. I underestimated my rehab costs. I underestimated the amount of rent I could charge. And I overestimated the percent that I could borrow. I was thinking I maybe get an 80% loan in a really bad neighborhood that the bank only wanted to lend me 70% on. Whoop. So you want to know your numbers, guys. How do you know your numbers? How do you learn numbers? You do that by doing market research. while you're sitting on the couch watching Netflix 5 minutes a day. You don't have to go to school to learn how to do market research. You just got to open your eyes and look. What's for sale? How much is it selling for? How long is it taking houses to sell for right now? Are they selling in 3 days, or is it taking 6 months to sell? That's market research. Just get an understanding of what the hell's going on outside of your house, in your neighborhood, in your city, in your county. Don't overthink it. Keep it simple. Loan terms. People are going to have questions about this, I'm sure. It's a great question. Typically, our loans are going to be 20, 25, or even 30-year terms. Whenever we are buying properties in an LLC, they're going to be commercial loans. Doesn't mean I'm buying a commercial building. It just means that I'm acting as a company, and they're going to give me a loan to my company, not to me as an individual. So when you see the word commercial, don't think it's like something crazy and that you got to be a millionaire to go get into a commercial building or a commercial loan. You could get a commercial loan on a $50,000 single family home. But basically, we do all commercial loans. We do have some traditional, but that's a loan where the bank lends me, not my business. And I prefer to do everything in my business for liability protection, as well as simplification of taxes. If all of my rental properties are filed, under multiple entities that are owned by one entity, I file one tax return. Keep it simple. Interest rates, not necessarily a big deal. You are going to pay a little bit higher percent of interest on a commercial loan versus a traditional loan, but you're talking maybe a half a point, 3/4 of a point. It's not a lot. Amortization schedule is the last slide we're going to touch on, so I'm going to save that. But whenever I am going into banks, I do want to reemphasize I'm looking to work with small local banks. I am looking to work with credit unions, and I am looking to get what's called portfolio loans, meaning they're not going to sell those off on the secondary market. These loans do not balloon. So a lot of these loans that you may get with Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Chase, I'm going to have these banks coming after me because I'm talking all smack on them here. But these banks, whenever they're doing loans to investors, they're going to do a 20 or maybe even a 25-year term in terms of the amortization. And they're going to give you a fixed rate for 3 or 5 or 7 years. But after that 3 or 5 or 7 years, you owe them 100% of the money. It comes due. Well, that's not a very good approach if you're using an amortization table, because that means you're starting all the way over at the beginning of that amortization table every 3 or 5 or 7 years. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to get a loan that's locked in for 20 or 25 or 30 years on my amortization, but that loan never becomes due. What happens, though, is every 3 or 5 years, the rate will adjust. So it's in theory, it's an adjustable fixed rate. It's fixed for 3 years, and then it adjusts to a new number, and then it's fixed for 3 more years, and then it adjusts to a new number. Then it's fixed for 3 more years. Do you see the difference? You want to understand amortization tables, and you want to use those to your benefit. And if you have questions about those, I can answer those here in a minute. The longer the duration, the cheaper the payment, which means the higher the cash flow. So I love 25 and 30-year loans. The majority of mine, I'd say 70% are 20-year loans, but I'm starting to venture into 25 and 30-year loans now because here's the thing. I can always pay them off quicker. But if I can reduce the amount that I owe every month, that means I get to keep more. My cash flow goes up. So action items for refinancing, guys. Find a local bank, do a commercial lending, get pre-approved, or figure out what you need to do to get approved. And if they tell you no, don't stop. You didn't fail. You're not a failure. I get told no to this day. With millions of dollars in assets and between my real estate itself and other businesses, I have $32,000 a month of passive income coming in, 32 grand. And banks still tell me no. It doesn't mean I suck. I'm not a failure. It just means that bank doesn't want to work with me today. So find another one. There is banks on every corner. There's almost more banks out there than there's Starbucks. It's crazy. And check this out. Banks make money when they lend it. When me or you walk into a bank, will you put me up here on the thing for a second? I just want to go off on this tangent real quick, and then we're going to wrap this up. This is super valuable. When you walk into a bank with a check for $1,000 or $1,000 in cash, and you deposit that into the bank's not making money. They owe you $1,000, and they have to pay you interest for having that money. How does a bank make money if you're unaware? A bank makes money by lending money to real estate investors like me and hopefully you. I go in and I borrow all that money that everybody else put in and deposited to get a little tiny piece of interest. And I take that and I buy real estate with it. And they love lending me money because they can take that real estate if I screw up, which I have never done. But the way a bank makes money is by lending it. So if you think that banks don't want to lend you money, you're wrong. Banks want to lend you as much money as they can. So just know that. It's very, very important. All right, back to the slide, my friend. All right, last but not least, find a deal and buy it, guys. That is the name of the game. Get it at a discount, fix it up.
House so easy, we close fast and anytime that works for you. Your house don't need it, we'll throw cash, it hits so fast, don't know what to do. Wanted her care to keep